The bells are chiming. It is 4 o'clock. I'll call this meeting to order. This is the February 19th, 2018 meeting of the City of Kerrville, Texas Economic Improvement Corporation. Sherry, I didn't ask you this before, but would you do our invocation?
Gladly, I'll share. Let's pray. Oh, good and gracious God, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here together today and to serve our community. Thank you for allowing us the privilege of doing so. And God, we ask that you would guide our time together here today, our thoughts, our deliberations, our conversation. May it all be pleasing to you and ultimately what you have for the peace and prosperity of our community. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right, item number 1 is the Visitors and Citizens Forum. Any citizen with business not scheduled on the agenda may speak to the Economic Improvement Corporation. No deliberation or action can be taken on these items because the Open Meetings Act requires an item be posted on an agenda 72 hours before the meeting. Visitors are asked to limit their presentation to 3 minutes. Do we have any citizens that would like to speak? All right, I see none, so we will move on to item number 2A, which is the approval of the minutes of the regular meetings that were held on January 22nd, 2018. Those are in your packet, pages 5 through 7.
I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
We have a motion for approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signal by raising your right hand. And that is approved unanimously. Moving on to section number 3A, which is the presentation of the monthly financials. Welcome, Sandra.
Good afternoon. On your operating fund, your opening cash was $2,098,917. You had income during the month of January of $279,424, with expenses of $101,601, leaving you an ending cash balance of $2,276,741. In the projects fund, you had no activity. The cash balance in that is $2,622,500. The second page of the financial report is the detail section, which shows the budget, the current period expenses, your year-to-date, and your remaining budget. The third page is the breakout and follow-up of your sales tax received to date. And the second block shows where your funds are being held at this time. And the third block is the committed funds to projects. And in the fourth one is your participation in some projects with the city. You don't have any questions on that?
Any questions? All right.
And then right behind that is the fourth quarter report from the James Avery for y'all's review and information.
So I suppose this question would be for EA, since he has read this document. Are they in compliance?
Yes, sir. Very much so. Doing very well.
Very good. Any other questions? Thank you, Sandra. All right, moving on to item 3B, which is the projects update. EA, I guess you're going to visit with us about these 3 projects?
Yes, I am, and I've got exciting news to relay, particularly on the River Trail component. We are beginning construction, so we've got crews that have mobilized and are starting that process. So we're hoping we can move forward and get it knocked out by end of summer time frame, August, September area. But it's exciting to be at this point finally. Reuse distribution lines are moving along nicely. We've got the vast majority of the lines in the ground. We're continuing to work to get span the river section, but other than that, it's they're getting very close on that. Tennis center improvements, we have seen an initial draft that has come back to staff. We've marked that up and sent that back to the consultant, so they are honing in on that. The next step will be them coming back and continuing to have some public dialogue about what they've drafted up based off of the community's input that we received a few months ago.
Great.
Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
I have a question, not about any of these three, but can you give me the status or where we're at on the streetscape site? That kind of stall out, or where are we on that?
We are continuing to work through the parking garage piece of the streetscape. Is that what you're referring to? Yes. So we are, we had the plan that came back from Peter Lewis.
Right.
Right now, what we've done, we have dedicated some effort to looking at the actual engineering and structural integrity piece of the parking garage. That is coming back, and what we hope to do is to maybe bid that all as one package, or at least have those contractors be aware of what the two are, so there's not an overlap. And it may be a situation where we actually have some economies of scale by bidding them both together. That's the hope.
Do you have kind of a guesstimate on time frame?
We're at 90% on the engineering, so it's under staff review right
Okay.
now, but we're hoping to have the engineering complete in the next 6 weeks.
Great.
I had one question about
Yes, sir.
the tennis center. So what's our general timeline of what we're doing from this point forward?
Right. So the hope is to have that preliminary concept plan come back, have the council and community be able to kind of reverberate on that and go back, and then there'll be engineering documents that will actually be created that we can then bid. So the hope is to have the engineering documents back going into the summer time frame, kind of around May to June, and then be able to potentially bid a project that could start as early as the end of the summer.
Okay.
We're playing with some dates and times right now. We want to be conscious of tournaments that may be scheduled out there as well. So we're trying to look at what that scope is, but
Right.
that's the general hope.
Okay.
Yeah, the work on the reuse distribution lines, it looks real good. Watching them do the work, so they're doing a good job on that.
Good.
Sure.
Yeah, we've got a couple areas, pavement areas that
Right.
we're going to go back and fix that weren't as smooth as we'd like, but they're aware of those. But we're hoping next 4 weeks or so that work, that repair work will be completed.
You know, the work on the grounds is pretty smooth, and they cleaned that real nice.
Good crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had really good luck with Chromex.
Any further questions? All right, thanks, EA.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to section number 4 and item 4A, which is a funding application for the Aquatics feasibility study coming from staff.
Yes, sir. So before you today, you have a funding application for Aquatics feasibility study. This is a quality of life project. Before I turn it over to Parks and Recreation Director Ashley Boyle, I just wanted to reiterate a little bit of the timeline on how we got here. This is a project that has been within the EIC's budget. It was in fiscal year 16 and carried over to fiscal year 17. So it is actually funded already for a full quotient of $100,000. However, I will preface that, based off of staff research, we're not anticipating utilizing that entire $100,000. It's simply a not to exceed number that's in there. But based off of our preliminary poking around, we think it will be less than that, a half or 2/3 of that amount. So with that, I will kick it over to Ms. Ashley.
Just one quick question. So it's already been
Yeah, let me talk.
appropriated? The funds
Yes.
have already been appropriated?
Yes, it is within a project budget. It is simply where we're at in the process right now. It has gone to council for their approval to bring it to you.
Okay.
So we're here tonight with you for the funding application component. If you so choose, you can direct us to then create a funding agreement, which we could potentially bring back to you as early as the March 19th meeting. And then if you were to approve the funding agreement, we would anticipate that going on the council's agenda as early as March 27th.
And that's just for the
This
feasibility?
is simply for the feasibility analysis, so
Okay.
and I'll let Ms. Boyle get into more details about what the scope of that presents.
Very good, thank you.
Okay?
Good afternoon. Before we kind of get into the scope of work, I'd like to give you some information about what we do at the Olympic Pool. So, just show of hands real quick, how many of you have actually visited the Olympic Pool? Okay, great. So, the Olympic Pool is in Singing Park, and the Olympic Pool was built in what year? Can anybody tell me?
1970.
1970, very
I'm
nice.
fast.
Yeah, 1970. Essentially, at our facility here, we have the pool. It's just basically a big hole in the ground. We have shade structures. We have a baby pool. It's very small. We have pavilions. We have picnic structures. We have a high and a low dive. It's a 50-meter pool by 25 yards, and it's 6 lanes. Here's a picture of our baby pool. Keep this in the back of your head for just a second, because I'm going to show you a picture from a few decades ago, and it looks essentially the same, except for the shade structure. Okay, so we do open swim at the facility. This is a summer operational facility. We're open essentially the end of May, and we're trying to extend our season this year to the middle of August. And we are open every day during the week, except we're closed on Mondays for maintenance. We're doing a couple of new things this year. We're doing some promotional days to try to get a little bit more activity at the pool. You come dressed, in whatever thing we have listed. You get in the pool free. We're giving away ice cream at 4th of July, that kind of fun stuff. Okay, fun fact, for those of you that were around at this time, if any of y'all, our Olympic pool used to have platforms, diving platforms. Obviously, these are no longer here, but I thought that was something interesting to include in the facility information as well. And to me, if you look at the first picture, you can see how high these platforms were, how tall they were, and they kind of dwarf the high dive. And the high dive to me is, still high, so it's kind of scary. I told y'all to think about the baby pool. This is that picture I was talking about. Essentially, it looks exactly the same, except we put a fall zone around it, and we painted it, and we have a shade structure above it now. As you can see, the pool hasn't had a lot of upgrades in really forever. We do offer facility rentals at the pool as well. You can rent the pool, you can rent the pavilions, you can rent the picnic areas as well. We do programming. We have swim lessons. We do group swim lessons. We do individual swim lessons. We do senior water aerobics. We do lap swimming. We do a junior lifeguard camp starting this year, which will be new for kids ages 10 to 14. And we started this program to really try to recruit the younger ages, because we actually start hiring at 15. So this caps at 14, and those that are interested can move into employment with us the next year. We have lifeguards. They are licensed under the Ellis & Associates Lifeguard Training Program. We get audited each summer. We receive 2, and we always receive top marks for that. We have a competitive guard team. These guard team are trained and coached specifically to train against other guards across the state. And for the last 2 years, our guard team has won every competition that they've been to. They compete and learn skills such as, I'm not going to read these out to you, but you can see them, and a lot of different things that they do. They learn first aid, they do diabetic emergencies, lacerations, strokes, and I'll run through a couple of pictures real quick. They learn how to deal with impaled objects, spinal injury management, eye avulsions. If your eyeball ever pops out when you're at the pool, they can take care of that for you. Gunshot wounds, kind of scary to think about, but they're trained to be able to treat that. And obviously CPR and AED is a big part of what they do as well.
So wait, can I just ask real quick? So if my eye pops out, it's say a different part, can I just run to the pool and have them fix it?
Sure.
Okay, just wanted to make
If you don't
that
pass
clear.
out between there,
Huh?
we're happy to take
That's
care
okay.
of you. We do a couple of events at the pool as well. We do the kids triathlon at the end of the summer, and we also do the wet and wag event as well. As you can see in one of these pictures, we had a bear that attended in the lower right-hand corner, kind of a big dog. But they always have fun. So that's essentially what we do at the pool. Again, it's a summer operational facility, and it has not seen updates since essentially it was built. The scope of this project, basically we would evaluate the current condition of the pool. We know we have leaks. We know we have holes in the pool. We know we have old infrastructure, failing infrastructure. There'll be a needs assessment. We'll talk with KASD. We'll talk with Shriners University. We'll get with the community and figure out what exactly are the needs of the community. Is it a competitive facility? Is it a recreational facility? Or is it a combination of both? And KISD and Shriners University, as you saw in your packets, did indicate support for this project as well. Okay, so here's a picture of the entry of the pool. You can't really see it here on this picture, but what I've circled here is where we have a couple of actually holes in our plaster in our pool, and these are starting to grow and they're starting to multiply. So this is a definite issue that we're going to really need to address in the near future, because this is actually an indicator of a pool leak, and we know we have a few. Here, I circled it as well, and you can see the leaf outline of the actual hole in the pool. You can see it kind of looks like the shape of an M. We have a couple of those in the pool that I'm referring to. Hard to see in the picture because there's water, but luckily we had leaves in the pool that day that outlined it. This is our lobby area. Essentially what it is, you walk in, there's a lobby, there's a cashier area, and a couple of tables, there's a vending machine, and that's it. There's no designated first aid area. So those pictures that you saw when they had the eye avulsion, they're actually sitting in the lobby. There's no sanitary designated first aid room for people to go to treat that kind of thing. So when we have blood and bodily fluids, we have to treat that in front of people and then address the sanitation. This is our front counter. As you can see, if you look at the guards and the cashiers, they look hot because they don't have AC at the facility. And outside in the summer, it gets really hot in Texas, and they don't really have an area to where they can actually cool down because these guards are in the heat all day long. So they look hot. She even brought her own little fan in, the cashier, and we try to keep them cool as much as possible, but it'd be nice to have AC if this facility gets renovated.
What about the restrooms, actually? Are those have AC?
No, they do not. Inadequate storage. This is a picture of essentially our storage area. We have our office, and this equipment area is back behind it. It's very small, and we don't really have enough storage to be able to put everything. Janitorial areas, guard areas, everything's just kind of crammed in there the best we can. We'll get onto the pictures of the restrooms. They're very old. They're very dated. This is a picture of the men's restroom as well. It's not ADA compliant. There is no ADA stall currently, as it was built before those regulations went into place. Community showers. You can just tell these pictures are of a very dated facility. Okay, the pump room. As I mentioned earlier, all this equipment, essentially, a lot of it is very, very old. And here's a couple of pictures of our pump room. We have the filtration tanks. We have our pumps down there. We try to keep a couple of backup motors on hand in case something were to go down so we can continue to operate. But we're essentially, this equipment's very old and it really needs to be addressed and upgraded. So trends. People really don't want to see a facility like this any longer. They don't want to see a hole in the ground with water in it. They want to see things like this. They want to see things that are fun, slides, toys, things that are interactive, that get you out there to play, that draw you in. This is a couple of pictures I actually took from Round Rock when we were at the state lifeguard competition, and I thought it was a really awesome facility. It's newer. They had, this is all at one place. They had a lazy river. They had little cabanas that you can rent. They had the zero depth entry to the top right, which we do not have right now, for easy access for children to get into the pool. And then they also have this great play structure as well. So these are the types of things that people want to see at a recreational aquatic facility. And there's also the natatorium component of it as well. This would be what a competitive facility would look like. You have the lane lines, you have the backstroke flags, you have the markings in the pool, and this is essentially, as I said, a competitive facility. Okay, here's the timeline. We took this to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board in July of last year, and they unanimously approved us to supported the project to move forward. We took it to council on the 23rd, and they approved it to bring it to you tonight. And it's here for consideration. If you do so approve this, we'll bring back a funding agreement at your next meeting, hold a public hearing, and then take it back to council for final approval. And once we get all of that completed, we will initiate an RFQ process similar to the tennis center project. Okay, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
So who will be doing the study?
But we're not sure.
You're not sure yet?
We'll initiate an RFQ process to get consultants to submit, and then we'll evaluate them and choose the best fit for us.
Same way that we did with the tennis project.
Okay.
So you can have open bidding, so to speak, for the consultants?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's the purpose of the RFQ is we'll put it out there with our specifications, and they'll submit, and then once we get a consultant on board, we'll talk about pricing.
How did the pool get in such disrepair over time? Is just the fact that the city has failed to do any maintenance on it in the last few years, 10, 20 years?
Yeah, it's not preventative maintenance. It's more or less big dollars really haven't been thrown at the facility really ever. It was built, we kind of upkept it for 40, 50 years, and then it is where it is. You know, it's not going to stay in the same condition as it originally was.
Let me ask you, is there any, my understanding is when I take my grandson to the pool that it closes at 6 o'clock. Is there any way in the future when we make, if these changes are ever made, that the pool hours could be extended. I'm concerned that a lot of people who work don't have time to take their children to the pool after it's 6 o'clock.
Right.
And is there anyone ever discussed that as a possible, what could be done to meet those people's needs?
Sure, and the reason the pool hours are what they are is because of the amount of staff that we have. We have a certain amount of staff that we can hire and can attract, and also we do programming in the evenings as well. So once we shut down the pool, we kind of get it ready, and then we start our swim lessons in the evenings.
Is it the intent to, if they were to build something new, to build it there, it'll all go there?
That's completely open up in the air.
So it hasn't
That's a possibility. No, that'll come with this feasibility study. We'll look at the current facility, look at other options as well. But there could be a combination of things, either renovation to this facility, a new competitive facility if that's the will, or a combination of both. It's really, they're looking at all options.
So there's no determination if there was a new one to be built, it would be built there? I mean, if you weren't to remodel what you have, which surely needs to be fixed, it's kind of old. But
Sure.
that said, if you were going to build a new facility completely, is there enough land over there to do that for everything?
There's some land, we have some land adjacent to it that we could extend out a little bit, but that's something that would need to be studied as well. Ideally, you would have two facilities. You would have a competitive facility, an auditorium that's indoor, and also an outdoor recreational facility too. So you can have both, but obviously it comes down to money, and that would be very expensive.
So,
No, please.
I saw the two letters, both from Shriner and KISD. Looks like they're interested. I see the Aquatics Center down on 1604 that Northside Independent School District has put in. That's quite a facility, and I know it's hosted some I think Michael Phelps actually swam there at one point in time since it's open. So I know that that's a top-notch facility and probably quite large. Are we looking at something like that, or would it be a scaled-down version of that, or is this more for the use during the summer of the community?
I'll try to answer that the best I can. I've not seen that facility itself, but essentially what we're looking for on the competitive side is a facility that Shriner University and the school district can both use. They swim 25 meters, which our pool is 50, so we'd have to, if we use our existing facility, we'd have to pull a bulkhead in the middle of it. But essentially, that would work, and you would need typically 8 lanes, and our pool is 6, so you need to expand it out.
I got you. So,
In addition to heating the pool.
Have you seen use of the pool decline?
Actually, we've seen it go up a little bit this past summer by about 27% or so, which is quite a bit, actually. We see a lot of usage at the very beginning of the summer, and then it tends to drop in August, in July, July, as people start taking vacations and camps or whatever the reason is, but where it gets too hot. But we typically see our biggest usage right when we open.
Would you get more usage, do you think, if it was a facility that had the amenities that you showed us?
The play structures, I think so. I think absolutely it would, as long as our admission prices didn't go up to where people can't afford it. I think that essentially it would be a big draw for the community.
Would that help you hire the staff?
That's my hope.
Okay.
My question is, you mentioned 2 things I was going to ask about. If 6 lanes was adequate. There were 3 daughters, all who were swimmers, and have been to a lot of aquatic centers. But you also mentioned the pool. Is the pool 25 yards wide?
It's actually about 20.
Oh,
It's
okay.
about 5 yards short.
Because I was going to say you could do 8 lanes if it was 20. You said it was 25, and I went, well, you could do it sideways. But if that's 20, that doesn't work. So
Right.
thank you.
Sure.
Will the pool be, is a plan maybe to heat the pool all year long so it can be used all year long?
Yes, if the pool is going to be a year-round facility, it would definitely need to be heated.
Would that be open to the public too, like in the summer? Would we be able to staff it all year? Because I know we have a hard time keeping lifeguards after.
Right, and that's part of what we're going to put in the study too, is we want them to evaluate the workforce here to see if we can sustain a facility that's year-round. Because you're right, workforce is an issue for us in the summer. So yes, we would look at heating the pool, and yes, we would look at operating it year-round.
So we could request that they put in so many staff members all year long and at certain dollar amount per hour, whatever.
Sure.
Is the diving tank an economic, does it really function well? Are you using it a lot?
The diving boards?
The diving tank, yeah. That's a deep It's a deep pool. I
Yeah,
hope
we
they're
don't-
used a lot.
We don't program it. It's just used strictly for teaching our swim lessons essentially and just for
Okay, so
open
you do
swim.
not have diving competitions
No,
there?
we do not have diving competitions in our facility.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
The part, Shriner and KISD, is this feasibility study going to just talk to them, or are we gonna hope to, out of the feasibility study, have a more concrete sort of commitment from them?
That's something that we will talk to them during the feasibility study to see what kind of commitment they can provide. They both said that they'd be interested in providing some level of support. What that is at this point, we don't know. It's too premature. But I don't believe it's capital costs. I believe it would be on the operating side and or maybe staffing. I can't speak for them at this point.
Yeah, okay.
Do they plan to use it competitively?
That is their initial plan, yes, sir. And ISD has also talked about if this were to come to fruition, actually programming it, incorporating swim lessons into their elementary schools and their middle schools as well.
Would they be paying a fee to us for using the use of the pool?
I'm sure we'd work something out, but at this point, it's too early to tell.
Maybe you can get to have a class that they have to come and work there for you.
Yeah, there we go. For our lifeguards.
All right, any other questions? So I think we have heard the presentation, and in order to move forward, we will need to instruct city staff to get together a funding agreement. That would be the next step for this project if we see that it needs to go forward. That requires a motion?
Yeah, I move that we, staff
I'll
is
second.
going there, you're just a little quicker than I am,
Work.
to prepare a funding agreement
I'll
accordingly.
second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. And that is unanimously passing, so no need for the second. All right, let's move on to item 4B. And where are you, Ashley? Thank you very much for coming and presenting
you.
to us. 4B is the review of the EIC funding application and application process. EA?
All right, we've got just a brief PowerPoint here to kind of review some of the items that it's a continuation, obviously, of the discussion that we had at the special meeting on February 7th, I believe. So we'll just jump right into it. This is a little bit of a recap from that meeting. There were various recommendations that were made to both the funding application as well as the process. One of those was the ability for the applicant to indicate all applicable project categories. As you know, before it was kind of rolled up within the three categories: the business development, quality of life, and public infrastructure. This would allow for a breadth of categories to potentially be designated if applicable. There was a desire to capture opportunity costs and quality of life metrics if possible. There was a desire to extract and summarize common metrics or ratios from the submitted financial statements that may help summarize those pieces for the EIC's review rather than looking through the full financial documents. And then, as we mentioned before, there are some staff red lines that we're recommending, such as the removal of the community event category, which has not been a funding category for the EIC for several years now. So I'm going to jump into just some details here on each one of these. These are the applicable project categories. These aren't indicated in your draft, but we certainly can get into each one of those and have it as a checkbox. We can add to this or subtract from it, but these are the primary ones that are listed within the local government chapter on EICs. Opportunity, cost, and quality of life metrics. These are a few questions that we've extracted from other applications from different entities. We looked at, I think City of Corpus was relayed to you. We've looked at City of Addison, City of Rowlett, City of Carrollton, a number of other ones. And we've actually worked with Bill Cunningham, our comprehensive plan consultant, or one of the members of, I think you've met within the comprehensive planning process. And these are some of the metrics that he had forwarded to us. Obviously not a comprehensive list, but we can look at additional ones per your direction. Financial statement metrics and ratios. Spoken with Mr. Early and Mr. McKinney. These are a few that we've brainstormed, but again, not a comprehensive list by any means, so we're happy to add or subtract from this list as desired. So really just put this together as a primer for you guys and really kind of open it back up to you, Chairman Early.
All right. So, I think these things we kind of left out there, did a good job putting that together in the order that we listed them. So, I've looked at the redlined application, and let's just start there with that. Do you guys have any input, comments, anything on what was removed from the application or what we should add?
I don't have it in front of me.
So do I take the silence to mean we're okay with it?
I didn't have one printed up in front of me. I looked at it online, so.
And if you need more time to do that, we can certainly bring this around again.
Yeah, I would like that.
Okay.
I looked at, I think, Mark, what came out of Tyler. That had a lot of good information in there.
Yeah, you may want a different version than what you're looking at now, Kenneth, depending upon process that you all, the tweaks you may want in your process.
Okay.
So where'd he go? So we're not out of line asking for certain financials from applicants, is that correct?
We ask for financial statements right now within the application process. Let me see. If you look at page 38 of the overall packet, that's actually page 6 of the funding application, but page 38 of your packet, it says contents of application. The application process shall consist of a completed application form accompanied by 5 years of annual financials that include profit and loss statements, balance sheets, cash flow statements, IRS reporting forms, pro forma, a general description of proposed capital investments, and so on and such forth. What we were simply trying to get at here, we heard what you guys asked for last time was that you don't necessarily want to look through the full financial statements, but that you would like for us to look at particular metrics or ratios that we could summarize, staff could summarize, and bring forward to you all to be able to review in a more expedient fashion. And so we've just tried to encapsulate some suggested ones here. This may not be a comprehensive list for what you're looking for.
All in all, this would give you a good look at their balance sheet and their income statement in a very high level, instead of us having to really dig into that, because those meetings could last forever with these big companies, and I think we need to let staff do that for us, and then us
I agree
do
with
that,
you.
and then ask questions from that, and hope that we can get those questions answered pretty effectively.
I think that the interest, or I believe from the meeting, was that looking at the direct cost ratios, in other words, the value of the project versus how much money is being, it's a cost analysis of the deal. A whole lot was that. It wasn't so much the financial health of the applicant, although that's important. We don't need to, we were not asking to see that so much as the cost-benefit analysis. In other words, there were many things that I thought were not in there, which would be in favor of the project, frankly. When we look at other projects, there are many factors that were just not presented. So it didn't present itself well to get the amount of funding that was being requested. And so I just wanted to see a broader spectrum. There are many things that a project like this could bring to the community that were just were not on the in the presentation. And I think that it didn't serve the presentation well. And so therefore it was not as well received. And I think that's where we were. There was some interest in the financial well-being of the people who are going to do it, obviously, but in this particular case, the people that are presenting this project are well known to this community and have several projects in this community. So a lot of that goes a long way, let's put it that way. But there are many factors that weren't in here, EA, and that I wanted to see, and I was pretty vocal about that, and I think it's very important for us because we are using the people's money, the citizens' money, and we want to do it wisely, and I think everybody up here wants to do that.
So I want to get more to your point there,
Good.
because that was a little bit different aspect than I think what this group brought up on the financial statement. You did ask about the cost-benefit analysis, and there was an
Yes.
example that was provided towards the back of that, and I can't remember what page because I don't have it right in front of me, but there is a cost-benefit analysis that is provided, at least from a financial metric standpoint, utilizing their kind of extrapolation that's provided, and then a net cash flowed benefit to the community that's included within an impact data source document. So I don't know if that's hitting the mark or if there are other pieces that we need to look at.
I think it just wasn't presented in a fashion that really gave the true economic benefit of this particular project so that we could take a look at it and say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense, I mean, you know, but it just wasn't presented that way. It can't be just on a, gee, we get this much more in taxes, or we get this much more, and that's all we get out of it. There's a lot more to this than that. There were other items that were talked about of value that I think were just not in the proposal. The value of the excess capacity in the lines, the value of the proposed other contributions to the city that would come. So I just wanted to see all of that in one place so we can make a very educated decision on what we were trying to accomplish. So what everybody was trying to accomplish.
So if there was that detail provided in a executive summary,
Sure.
that would be, I believe,
I think that'd go
we
a long
talked
way.
about.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure which pieces of all of that you could throw that way.
So I think what EA was referring to, what was in your packet, we just provided as an example of some prior projects. This exact thing was done for, I think you're referring to the Thompson Road project. So we didn't put this copy out to you all, we did highly summarize it. So just like these metrics that we're talking about for financial statements, if there's certain things that you want out of this report that we need to include in a summary form, we're happy to do that. We are a little bit reluctant to send all this stuff out electronically, just like their statements. But that's kind of what we're trying to get to, is if we could get to some of that summary information that we saw on their personal financials, and maybe the summary data that you want out of here, then we can certainly do that. But, you know.
Mark, I think that's, if you're talking about this study that I have in
Yes,
my hand. Okay. Yeah, this is clearly a financial mathematical equation that you plug in numbers and it comes out and it talks about all the different elements that I'm talking about. Matter of fact, there are other elements to this particular project that aren't even included in this because it's not that kind of a project.
Right.
But yes, I think we just need to get what's the real benefit to the community from this deal. So if somebody says, you know, why did you spend this money to do that? You can discuss it. You can say there's a great value to some of this stuff. Now, whether it is or isn't is a whole other equation. That depends on what we get from you guys. But I think you just have to have that information to make a determination.
Well, and that's what we're trying to do here. And we
Right.
thought we did because we were following kind of the protocols that we have in the past. So to make it better, we're all for that. So if there's specifically some other information that we need to include, then you know, we're happy to go after that. It's just we need to kind of make sure that everybody's on the same page about what to include so that y'all can make
Well,
your
a couple
decision.
of the things that aren't really hard, but they're really hard in the sense of you can just nail them all down because a lot of this is fairly esoteric. But I'll just throw some examples. One I just said was the excess capacity that would be available in the lines. That would be available for other development in that area, which we would hope would occur. There was the offer of some land that would have to have a value, certainly all of the occupants of this particular project were not going to be just people moving around town. There would be new people who come in who go into this, so there's the value of that added as well. Now, sure, all of that is a little esoteric, but all of this is. I mean, there's a great deal of esoteric in here, but there are taxes, and if you had a 100-unit project and you got 50 new people coming in, there's a huge economic benefit to that.
Yeah, so I think this is a starting point.
Yeah.
Each project's going to have
Right.
some more specific items like you have detailed. And I think at that initial presentation, at least the public component of it, it was intended to be just a general overview, and then start, delving into the details. And so when we meet in executive session about the deal points, what are the additional items that you all want to see? And we can certainly do that, as each project moves through the process.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I was thinking it would be. You come up with something that's sort of the generic up front, but if we take it back there and we're talking about it, and we have other questions come up, I want those to be acceptable questions.
Right.
Like even if we didn't think about it ahead of time, they're still valid questions. So I don't want the applicant thinking we're putting them off because we've gone back there and didn't come out with a rubber stamp right away. So if we're asking extra questions beyond the generic, it's a work in progress. So once we ask it once, maybe that'll be something we prepare for the next time. But you know what I'm saying? Just kind of build this thing as
That's the
we
only way
go.
you can do it,
Right.
because each deal is going to be different.
Right.
And I think that the way that staff interacts with applicants communicates that, I'm assuming. So kind of the intention behind and the question. So.
Mark, can I ask you a question about this or not? After the meeting?
Why don't you anytime? Now or later?
Well,
See you
okay, this is
tomorrow.
I'm just on page 6, okay, where it talks about estimated contribution to gross area product by projects for these four years and the specific projects for the KEDC, I guess. You see that, page
Yes.
6? Okay, and it shows a total of 1.4 billion. That's right, that's billion, okay, and I guess GDP, gross area product. And so I was trying to figure out how I could reconcile that number, which I don't think you can do with any of the other numbers here. But for example, it indicated that for the same time frame, we'd have 135 million in estimated taxable sales, and then further on down, you had 2.6 million in property tax collections over that same period, and then about 5.9 million in total revenues for other local districts, and then you had, the income. It doesn't come anywhere close to that number. I'm just trying to figure out where they come up with that number.
It's an extrapolation, and I think what we probably ought to wait for is that I know KEDC intends to come and present this report. It came out in summary format at the Economic Summit, and so they intend to come and visit with each entity to go into more detail and perhaps even have the consultant here. I don't know, but in the meantime, we'll try to get you some high-level answers on that.
Well, I have more questions on it, and I'll wait till they come.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
So, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I do. I'm not sure where we are. Did we really do anything different from what we had before other than ask a lot of questions? And if we asked a lot of questions, did we get any answers?
I think it's kind of like what you and George were talking about. We're going to continuously be asking questions. So long as the information, we can get the information, but at the same time, don't want to delay the projects.
No,
Because
sure.
so if we can establish what basics we need, I think it's important.
So,
And I might, just one little thing, or it's not maybe little, is the flow of that application. Is someone reviewing that? Because there's, 6 sections or something. The application that we're currently using, there's the applicant information is put in there twice. It's obviously a paper form. Do we have it in electronic? There's a way to clean it up where there's only applicant information listed once, and they don't have to decide whether they should fill it in this spot or not, depending on the type, that type of thing. Is somebody looking at that aspect of the form? Because I would suggest that. I would.
To make an electronic application.
Well, not just electronic. If you recall how it's flowing now, it's got quality of life, and then it's got the business development. Both sections have them listing the application or the applicant information. Why not just go, definitions, applicant information, what's the project type, and based on the project type, you're going to have to answer some other that type of thing.
Right. So there's so many different things that we need to be looking at, and it all has to work together, right? But
Yeah.
the simple things of an online application, that should be done. KEDC has been the one that has facilitated that in the past. As I've mentioned earlier, they're reviewing their processes and their governance and so forth, and that's coming forward probably within the next 30 days, Mike? Maybe? We hope. And you saw several examples of other entities and the way their forms look. And the other important point here, I think, is to remember that whether it's the city or it's the county or it's the city of Ingram or what other entity it is that's offering the incentive, we don't all have to have the same guidelines. And so the application may be different for an EIC funding request than it might be for a tax abatement from the city or from the county, for example. So we need to be thinking about our application for EIC funding, and in fact, as you know, in many cases, if we're not even asking for EIC money, it doesn't even go through this board, it goes straight to the council. So
right.
the form could be a little bit different for different circumstances. And I sent you some example of the Corpus Christi different incentives, and so depending upon what the incentive it is, it might even have a different application.
Right. So that's why basically, like I said last meeting, instead of having us wait for KDC to come up with their process, we should be dictating what we'd like to see in the form that we're receiving, right? Instead of waiting for them to, because they're gonna feed to multiple sources of funding, and with all due respect to the other funding sources, we only care about EIC. So if we look at our form coming out the way we need to see it for this.
In large part, yes, but I would say that my guess is that y'all are going to want to know, are they leveraging other types of incentives as well?
Right.
Right. So are they doing tax abatement? Are they doing rebate of sales tax? What have you?
If y'all haven't had the opportunity to look at the Tyler one and the Corpus Christi one, I recommend
Yeah.
looking at those, and it might help
And
put it together.
we got 3 more today that we'd be happy to share with you.
Oh.
And I know that we're not big on committees here, but and we could have them open to the public, but maybe an idea here would be to have 2 or 3 of you work with the staff on a revised application and the kinds of things that you want to see. We do have a Go team. I know that Mr. Cooper's on there, and we have what do we call them? An alternate. Yeah. With Robert. So we could do that if that'd be more expedient as opposed to us trying to
I think
wordsmith.
so, because I think part of the whole process is the starting point, which is the application. I think there's a lot of good information that's being shared, and I think we want to even more so tweak the application we currently have, and maybe even put it into some other types of formats such as electronic, and make that available. But we don't want to make it to where it doesn't fit and we don't get the sharing of information. So and I think that does take some trial and error.
It does, and it's a never-ending process, right? Just because we come up with a form that works today, tomorrow we can change it to make it a little bit better. So.
Exactly.
Right.
So I like the idea of having 2 or 3 people meet with city staff and try to organize and maybe revamp that using some of the examples that we have. So I would.
But a question, can I just interject? Mark, timing-wise with that, do you, with regard to KEDC is working through some things, we have the planning committee, comprehensive planning. So where do you see timing on even getting started on something like this, and what makes the most sense for everybody's time?
Well, I think Mr. Bree has a good point in that y'all can have a different process and application and so forth, different from the other entities, and it all goes through a clearinghouse of whatever KEDC looks like in the future.
You want it to dovetail, however.
We do, and that's when we get to the point of kind of bringing it all together. It's kind of a chicken and egg, right?
Okay.
So KDC's doing their thing. We've got the comprehensive plan. We've got you all looking at your processes. So, you know, I think we're all working at the same time. I don't think it would be work that would be undone or time that wasn't well spent. Go ahead and begin the process now.
Retweet.
I
Thank you.
like that idea. All right. So what I was going to suggest was first volunteers that may want to serve on that committee, subcommittee, whatever it is. It's got to be, of course, an open meeting. Our bylaws require that. So I've heard, and I've heard some information
I got some
from George.
thoughts, I guess.
I mean, I'll do it if you need me
You
to,
want
if you want.
I mean, it can be more than 3.
No, I think the Go team and George, good, I'm good with that.
The go team.
The
Go
Go
team and
team
George.
and George.
Oh, George.
I think it will not only help you guys understand the whole workflow. A new set of eyes on it's going to help us maybe make it easier on members that come later.
You bet.
I do. So, all right. Does that have to be formalized? I know our attorney's not here.
It's not on the agenda.
A committee.
Go ahead. Well, he's right. It's just a discussion of the process. But I guess this is part of the discussion of the process, is to appoint a committee to,
Mhm. Put it on the agenda.
or just do it by consensus and we'll work with that.
Okay.
Just gonna do it.
Just do it?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
There's your
I
consensus.
think the
Nike.
motion
Gotta
has
be
to
a good
say,
company.
on authority of the city
No,
manager,
sure.
Mark
Go
McDaniel, we would
team's
like
good
to
to
go
have you two
forward
together.
with
And I like
whatever.
that, George. Make
Yeah,
it
there
work.
you go.
I'll
Got
second
a
that.
consensus.
So just a vote then.
Sure.
See, now he's nervous.
Now he
See
is
how that
nervous.
works?
All right, so if someone will make the motion to form the committee.
Yeah, make a motion to form the committee of the Go team and George.
All right, in a second?
And who's the go team? I'm sorry, I'm defining, I need some clarity.
Robert,
You mean the 2 EIC
No, yeah,
members
the
on the go
members
team?
here. Yeah,
Because the
yeah,
go
yeah,
team
yeah,
is more
yeah.
comprehensive.
Yeah. 2 EIC members of the GO team, there you go, and George.
There you go.
All right, so we have a motion. We don't have a second yet. And it has to be me or
Has to be
you.
you. It has to be one of you
Because they're
guys.
on- I'll second it. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Okay.
Any opposed? All right,
Your other right hand.
motion carries.
Depends on which side you're looking at.
All right, I don't think there's anything slated for executive session today.
I'm left-handed.
And no possible actions for items discussed would fall under that as well. Any announcements? If nothing further, I'd take a motion for
So
adjournment.
moved.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. We are adjourned. Thank you very much for your time.
As an unofficial